Progress.
Welcome to the College of Fellows Voices for the Future series, interviews with members of the College of Fellows. I'm Greg Bailey from the PRSA College of Fellows, and with me today is Robin Schell, Senior Counsel and Partner at Jackson, Wagner in Rye, New Hampshire. Robin was inducted into the college in 2006 and was the inaugural winner of the college's Sage Award for Mentoring in 2018. Today we're going to spend a few minutes talking about Patrick Jackson, the founder of Robin's firm, and one of our profession's most respected and influential practitioners. Pat passed away in 2001. However, his influence and impact on public relations continues today. Thanks, Robin, for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me, Greg.
Let's start with Pat Jackson as a founder of the College of Fellows, and why is it important to practitioners, and why was it important to Pat?
That's a great question, and I know very much that Pat was so devoted to PRSA and the importance of having a professional society. It was very clear when you worked at JJ&W that you were going to be involved in PRSA, you were going to be giving back to the profession. And I believe he saw the College of Fellows as another way to keep senior practitioners involved and engaged, and again, to give them an opportunity to give back to the profession. And that's why, for those who have applied to the college, there's a rigorous application process that sets the bar fairly high for College of Fellows members and ask them for examples of how they've given back to the profession and made an impact on society. So I think that was what was in his mind, as well as the others who worked together to found the college.
Personal, how did you get your job at Jackson and Wagner?
Yeah, it was a great, one of those rare cases that got to work with Pat right out of the gate. So I was hired first at his newsletter, PR Reporter. And that was, at the time, it was edited by both Pat and Otto Lerbinger. And I worked as the marketing director right out of college for about a year and a half. And then I think Pat saw my potential and he learned a little bit about my work ethic, and he gave me the opportunity to work at the firm. So very lucky. Right place, right time, I guess.
What talk a little bit about Pat's impact on your career.
Sure. Well, for those of you who don't know Pat, he really was a visionary in the PR field, and it was such an honor and a privilege to work alongside him. He had this impact on our profession because of his behavioral approach to public relations. He just believed and he saw the future for PR professionals and what we could do, the impact that we could make on organizations. And it was a wonderful experience to be able to just listen to him on a daily basis. I grew very much from all of the professional appointments that he encouraged us all to take part in, whether it be PRSA. The firm supported all of us to be active in pro bono activities. And, they gave us time to do all of that, paid for our professional development memberships, all of that kind of thing. In return, he had really high expectations of all of us. So he pushed us, and it had a great impact on my career.
So there's there's so much writing about Pat, and he's written so much, and you all have done a great job of cataloging so much of his work. And your firm today is still at the forefront of behavioral public relations. Let's delve into that a little bit deeper and talk a little bit about how that differs from what most of us do in this profession on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. I think, when we talk to clients about behavioral public relations, we boil it down like this. We say, what is it that we're trying to get stakeholders to either do or not doing, or keep doing, or let us do? And it really boils down to that strategic approach. And so whenever we are working on something, that's the approach we take, and it really requires discipline to focus on only those strategies and tactics that are going to ultimately drive those behaviors. And I think that's why our firm has such a heavy focus on research, because we want to understand what is in the minds and hearts of stakeholders. We want to understand what are those barriers to behavior that we need to navigate around, and what, conversely, are the opportunities that we can take advantage of to drive those behaviors. So, Pat always viewed the media as having the role of creating awareness and reinforcing whatever it is we're getting people to try to do. But he always said, they're not the be all and end all. They are the one tool in the toolbox of public relations practitioners. So it's not that we don't do media or don't understand its value. We just see it as one piece of the puzzle.
So we talk in our profession, especially in PRSA, about the 4-step process all the time. In a lot of times people will find clients a little hesitant to do that first research piece, but it really is critical. I think, in terms of advancing the program for that client.
Absolutely. And, one of the first questions we ask, of course, is, do you already have some of this research available? Because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We also like to understand what kind of situation we're walking into. Are we walking into a situation where an organization has used research time and time again, but they haven't communicated the results back, or they haven't done anything based on that research? We want to know that up front. And then we figure out what is the best way to reach whatever stakeholder audience we're targeting. So we like to get that baseline read, just like many of the other practitioners out there. If it's a campaign or something, we're taking a midpoint temperature check, seeing if messages are resonating, seeing if behavior is changing, and then at the end to evaluate, how have we moved the needle? And I think one of the things we also communicate to clients is it doesn't have to be done with survey research every time. I'm president of the Yankee chapter of PRSA right now, and one of the measurable goals that I have is I want to get our membership over 100 members, and so we don't need a survey for that. At the end of the year, we'll either be at 100 or more members, or we won't be. So it's thinking about how is it we are measuring the goals and objectives we're setting for ourselves.
So do you all ever ask, what would Pat do?
Oh, yes, we do that all the time, Greg. We might not say it out loud, but it's always a thought bubble. And, we're very fortunate because we not only worked with him for many years, but we have incredible body of knowledge really in our files. And so, when I'm working with Stacy, one of us will say, oh, you remember that article we did in PR Reporter? And by the way, we do have on the JJNW website, we've created a separate website, www.patrickjacksonpr.com. For those who never knew Pat, never got to hear him lecture, that might be a nice resource for people.
Well, it's a resource for me. I mean, I will go there 3 or 4 or 5 times a year just hunting for something and hoping that a light will come on. And 99 times out of 100, the light comes on because there's something he's written or some project he worked on that will illuminate my thinking. So it's invaluable. So people, I'm glad you mentioned the website. And again, it's patrickjacksonpr.com, and it's full of fascinating thoughts and information. So is it true there was no Wagner?
No, that's actually not true. So Pat grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Harley Wagner was an extremely talented graphic designer and graphic psychologist that we would partner with. Even though he was in Grand Rapids, we would pull him in if we had a big logo project. And some of the work that Harley has done still exists to this day. I can remember as a younger practitioner testing out some of the designs that Harley designed for the American Express Optima card, but also for some of we were very involved JJ&W believed very strongly that we should counsel a wide variety of industries rather than just specialize in one industry. And we did a lot for the state of New Hampshire in terms of environmental and trying to preserve the state of New Hampshire. So all the work that we did, he did the logos for something called SPACE, Statewide Program of Action to Conserve Our Environment, Trust for New Hampshire Lands, and some of that work as well. So no, there was a Wagner for sure.
Okay, let's talk a second about, I mean, you worked with Pat, you have all this great body of knowledge that still exists from him. Talk about his impact on our profession.
Yeah, I think when I think about how far ahead he was of his time and what a visionary he was, and I think, you know, he really brought to the forefront this idea that we needed to be at the management table helping to make these decisions. And, you know, it's funny because my title at the firm is Senior Counsel and Partner. And many times Stacy and I get the question, are you an attorney? And I believe Pat did this strategically because he wanted us to be at the same level as the attorneys. And in many situations, we're at the table with attorneys working on a crisis situation or you name it. They are the court of law. We are the court of public opinion. So he really elevated the profession in a way that made us be seen less as just, you know, tacticians and more as strategists and really bringing a lot of value to the organization. I think a little bit about, we were talking about research earlier, his piece that we still refer to this a lot, and I teach it in my PR boot camp. It's called 9 Ways PR Impacts the Bottom Line. And the way that he really saw how what we do impacts everything and not just raising awareness, but on actually the bottom line of the organization, on our social responsibility policies, on how well we do in crisis and issue anticipation, our whole role in bringing an organization together so that organizations will function at its highest level. All of that stuff that we bring to the table impacts the bottom line of an organization. And yeah, he had that approach from day one. And I think he brought the rest of the profession along with him slowly but surely.
You know, today you're seeing so many lines being blurred in our profession, and practitioners now call themselves strategic communicators. What would Pat think of where our profession is today?
I think he would be glad that more people were considering themselves strategic communicators, frankly. He used to talk a lot about the practitioners who worked for nonprofit organizations, and his little quote was, they can make bricks out of straw, that they had to have so many skills because they were usually, the only person in their department. And I think, he would be glad to know that we are being considered at a higher elevated level. I think in terms of the focus on media and social media, he'd say the same thing. He'd say, hey, AI, social media, they're all tools in the toolbox. But at the end of the day, it's how you strategically use those tools that makes the difference.
So the AI brings up a question. Pat was such a gifted writer. Do you think he would drop some things into AI today to see what ChatGPT sent back?
Oh boy, that's quite the question. I don't know. His process was that he let it cook around in here, and then it just all came out. And it might have come out on the back of a napkin on an airplane, and it might have come out, at the computer. But maybe, he was a guy who liked to try new things, so maybe he would, and maybe he would have actually used it to test how it was coming out against his own thinking.
Robin, thanks a lot for your time today. This was great, and we appreciate you joining us for Voices for the Future.
Happy to do it. Thanks so much.